Hello. Just thought I'd give everybody an update where I'm at. Got some good news this week, and that is that I passed the plumbing inspection. So I thought I'd do a little quick video show some of the stuff I figured out along the way and did, and passed on the first try. So if I did mess up, they didn't catch it. So I'm gonna show you a little bit about what I did. So first of all, for the drainage lines, I use this ABS, which is the black plastic you can see here, because it's a little bit more flexible and very easy to glue. You don't need a primer like PVC pipe. As I got it all put together, I realized I had to either one, test it with pressure or test it with air. And since I don't have good access to water up here, for that much water to fill up all the pipes, I decided to go with air. And what you gotta do is pump it up to 5 psi, which you can see here on the little gauge that I bought that can hook up to the system. Pump up to 5 psi, and it's got to stay for 15 minutes. So that's what we did, and that's where we're at. I did find a couple leaks when I first pressurized it, which was a little annoying. A couple of them were just on cleanouts, and that was dumb because I should have tightened them up before when I glued it all together and just tightened it up at the time. And then one was at one of the closet flanges for the toilets, where I just didn't use enough glue. There was probably one other spot that I just didn't use enough glue. So I think the lesson is make sure you use a lot of glue. Put it on the pipe that you're putting in and inside the pipe that you're gluing to, and then that will make sure you get a good seal. So that's what I did. I'll show you a little bit about what I got here. I'm in the master bath, and then we got the rough-in plumbing is what we passed. So what I got here is the shower drain there, and the drain's actually not connected, as you can see, but the pipe's just stubbed out, and I put a cap on it. And then same thing over here. I've got the pipe stubbed out way too far, but that's okay. It's for the freestanding tub. And then what I just showed you was the dual sink here. So some of the things about plumbing is you got to have P-trap everywhere. In this case, for sinks, you have the P-trap on the outside of the walls or the plumbing system, and you put those in right under the sink. For cases like a floor drain or the drain for the freestanding tub, you got to have the P-trap underneath the floor. So I'll show you that at some point here. What it really looks like is if I look up above here, I've got a P-trap for the upstairs bathroom bathtub, and that drains there into that P-trap so that no air can get up through the system and make your house stink. So a few things here. Also, after each P-trap, you have to have a vent, and the vent has to be within a certain distance so that it doesn't, the water doesn't clog and gurgle through as it's draining, so it can drain faster. So that's the vertical pipe coming up out of there, and that vent has to go up all the way through the roof. In this case, I went up to the second floor, turned, and then connected over to the other piping system that I have, and then went up through the roof that way. That way I'd have less penetrations. But in some cases, like you can see here, we're looking at the back side of the drain for the washer and dryer. That vent kind of comes around over here, and I didn't vent into the big pipe directly because you don't want to have a vent, from what I understand anyway, a vent on the under a toilet line, because this big pipe is also the drain for the toilet closet flange right there. So toilets have their trap inside the toilet, so you don't have to have a trap inside there, but you do have to have everything vented. So I made sure to go up above that. So this little small line that goes up there eventually connects back to the big 3-inch line up above where the toilet drains in. So that way all the air can get in as it's draining. So that little line on the left is all vent line, and then the 3-inch line is the drain for the toilet upstairs and everything else upstairs. So that's about it for the drainage lines. For the PEX lines, what we got here is quite a bit. I'll take you around. Give me just a minute. PEX was a little bit easier. I just bought a nice PEX crimp tool, and that crimped everything, and there was no leaks in that whole system, so that was good. The only leak was actually on the valve that I hooked up to test it, so that wasted a bunch of time doing that. But let me show you the front side here. Here's the PEX system that I put together. I did homemade manifolds for both the cold and the hot. For the rough plumbing, it doesn't need to be connected to a water heater or anything yet, so that's why these red and blue are connected to each other. This is the in pipe for the cold water, and this is going to be the in pipe for the hot water. But really, they're just going to come to the water heater and the main supply, which is going to come up through the floor down here. But I also labeled each one so that I could each of these valves, so I could turn them off and on one at a time if there's ever any problems, or as I'm doing the whole system. Some things you don't need turned on, some things you do. And I tested the whole system with the same gauge on the right here, just with a garden hose flange, and connected it to the washing machine. And then you got this little cap to cap that guy for the drainage line. So I did have to, by the way, for the drainage lines, I did have to cap off everything up on the roof in order to have it hold air, and I also had to cap off down at the very end. There's a inspection port. You can buy a bulb. It's like a big bulb that you can pump up with a tire pump. You stick that in there, screw it in, and then you pump it up, and it holds all the air or water, depending on which type of method you're using. And then so for the other thing for the PEX is you got to do is for the what do you call it? There's the valve for the shower, and then up there I've got the actual plastic test cap is what it is, and that little cap is just to keep air from coming out when I'm doing the test, because you have no control on the valve until you put the actual thing on after drywall and everything else. So I just put that test cap on there to hold the pressure while I'm going. And I made sure to put those pretty high. That's probably like, what is that, 7.5, 8 feet tall to that, just so that it'll never be a problem for height, because I hate going into houses where they have little short shower heads where you have to duck down to get wet. So there's shower heads up down here and upstairs as well. So that's the PEX line. And then over here I'll show you a little bit with the like, here's our I'm in the powder room here. Same thing, got a little drain line, and then you got the two PEX stub outs, but I used copper stub outs because I was thinking I would just use a push flange for those. That way I don't have to do any sweating of copper, which is pretty frustrating. You can see by my manifold there, it did take quite a bit of PEX, but I was able to run around and through things with no problem. Whereas if I was using copper, there's no way I could run through all the joists and things that I did. So just use copper for the stub outs only. And then you can see the stub out for the toilet over there, and then the toilet flange. And I bought these toilet flanges that have a little piece in the top that you can knock out. That way you can do the test, air test or water test on the drain line without having to put a plug in there. So I don't have to buy a whole bunch of plugs to do the whole system. And then we got a few leftover rolls of PEX here. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. I think the biggest thing is just making sure that all the drains are vented, and that the vents don't run into any toilet drains. So the vent's got to be above that, and it's also got to, if you do vent any horizontal, you got to be careful where you do horizontal runs too. They have to be the right slope. So on a vent it has to be sloped upward, and then on a drain it has to be sloped downward, obviously. So just got to be a little careful with that. And those, if you do have to run a horizontal line for a drain line, that horizontal line can only go a certain distance for the vent, and then the vent has to be a certain distance above the I think they call it the flood line, so basically above the sink. So if you put a sink in, you got to go like I don't know, what is a foot or something above the sink before you can go horizontally in a vent line. I didn't have any horizontal vents other than what I showed you, but here's the kitchen. So we got the main drain there that'll drain everything from two sinks and a garbage disposal. And then I had to run kind of a long horizontal line there, which is part of why I used a 2-inch ABS pipe, because you can go longer with that. But the reason I had to go so far over was because of this big window right above the sink. So, and then that just went straight up through the roof. In this case, I didn't actually join it with anything else. Just went straight up through the roof. And then it goes down here and all the way across to the drain at the other end. So anyway, that's where I'm at. Pretty excited. Got the plumbing inspection done and thought I'd share that with everybody. All right, that's it for this time.